Hey guys, what's up? It's BigJackFilms here, and welcome to another Let's Talk. Well, considering this year's the 85th anniversary of the original 1933 classic King Kong, I figured this time I would talk about another giant gorilla simply known as Mighty Joe Young. The original 1949 classic, directed by the same team behind King Kong, was a massive success at the box office and introduced the world to the legendary stop-motion animator Ray Harryhausen. The film follows the story about a young girl, played by Terry Moore, who raises a baby gorilla and turns out to be Kong-sized. But when an entertainer, played by Robert Armstrong from the original Kong, decides to take Joe back to Los Angeles, he runs amok and has to redeem himself by saving a group of children from a burning orphanage. Now, the film itself is an iconic classic, and I have already reviewed said film, but today I want to talk about the 1998 remake that a lot of people seem to forget about. In 1998, Walt Disney Pictures, along with RKO itself, decided to do a remake of Mighty Joe Young starring Charlize Theron, Bill Paxton, and with incredible ape suit effects by Kong 76 performer Rick Baker. I have already reviewed the film, and in my opinion, I gotta say it's probably better than the original film, most notably due to the action scenes, character development, and the incredible special effects work. Hell, one thing I'm ashamed of that I forgot to mention was the fact that Terry Moore and Ray Harryhausen do a cameo in the film. Take a look!
She reminds me of somebody, but I can't think who it is.
You, when we first met.
It must have been surreal. No, I actually suggested at a very early production meeting that we put Ray in the movie.
Now, the reasons for me liking this film is mostly due to the effort. The original is so iconic that it's hard to really improve on the amazing special effects technology and the story itself. But thankfully, the remake actually succeeds in bringing the story to modern times, as well as giving the characters a lot more development. Charlize Theron in one of her early roles is absolutely fantastic, the late Bill Paxton is charming, funny, and entertaining, and of course the villains, which are a group of poachers, are just so fun to watch. Plus, according to Rick Baker, this was his way of getting back at Dino De Laurentiis and Carlo Rambaldi for not letting him fully realize his ape suit concept for the 1976 film. He stated in several interviews that this was the suit he always wanted to make for a Kong film, and let's be honest, it actually is pretty damn impressive.
The Mighty Joe Young that I did at Disney, that was much more the suit that I wanted to build for Kong and much more the performance I wanted Kong to be.
Not to mention, the late James Horner gives us one of his best scores to date, and it's really unappreciated. Thinking, gee, this film has a lot going for it, and it must have been a huge success at the box office when it came out. Not really. While the film was Disney's Christmas release date of 1998, it was unfortunately completely passed by the critics, and it flopped completely at the box office, which is a shame because this movie looked like it had a lot of time and effort put into it. And given this information we're now given about the film, the question is, why did it flop? Well, it could be due to several things. The first thing I will mention is the fact that it was honestly very poorly marketed. The film had little to no trailers, only on a couple of home video releases. The press release was very quiet, and only a few promos existed on the Disney Channel. And for the most part, it was really only successful on home video. However, one of the reasons it was poorly marketed was due to the fact that this was during the dark age of movies. Like Nostalgia Critic said in his editorial, the late 90s and early 2000s were the real dark age of movies, where every film was just expected to be critically bashed and flop at the box office. And that's no doubt thanks to the likes of Batman and Robin, which was a huge disappointment at the box office and made a lot of moviegoers feel really betrayed with movies. And with other films like Inspector Gadget, George of the Jungle, and even 101 Dalmatians at some point, the live-action Disney films were starting to decrease in popularity. However, one of the biggest blames you can give for this movie flopping is due to one other monster movie that came out the exact same year.
King Kong.
A truly epic film. It's got laughter. It's got tears.
No. The Mighty Kong was completely forgot about because, quite frankly, it's an animated piece of shit. I am, of course, talking about Roland Emmerich's piece of dino dropping simply known as the 1998 Godzilla. And yeah, I'm probably the 100th person to bring this up, but it's kinda true. The 1998 Godzilla was so hyped up at the time that a lot of people were excited for it, and it did pretty well at the box office, but it was critically bashed by many filmgoers and especially Godzilla fans, because this thing is not Godzilla. It's the beast from 20,000 Fathoms. It was such a butchering of the character that it honestly completely destroyed the giant monster movie genre for about a year until Toho made Godzilla 2000 and continued their line of kaiju films throughout the 2000s. But for us here in North America, and especially Hollywood, the monster movie genre died instantly. The 1998 Godzilla was such a major disappointment that during its production, there were some other giant monster movies being planned at the same time. For example, Peter Jackson was planning to remake King Kong as far back as 1996 with producer Robert Zemeckis, and was going to go for the style of an Indiana Jones adventure. But because of the upcoming releases of Godzilla 98 and Disney's Mighty Joe Young, Universal completely pulled the plug on the project, and it left a lot of fans completely disappointed that this wasn't the final product that we got in 2005. However, for Disney, this ended up being a different story. The film was already currently in post-production by the time Godzilla 98 came out, and when the critics bashed the film and the film dropped poorly in the box office after a few weeks, Disney started to get concerned that their giant gorilla movie was probably gonna suffer the same fate. Hell, remakes in general weren't doing that good. Remember the 1998 Psycho remake? Yeah, that ended up being a complete piece of shit at the box office. So naturally, Disney was kind of scared that remaking a classic monster film would pretty much fall into the same fate of Godzilla and Psycho 98. And in that sense, the marketing for Mighty Joe Young 98 was completely cut, and the film ended up going into obscurity, and even today, not many people recognize it as a decent Disney film. Hell, even Doug Walker hasn't mentioned it in Disney-cember, and I've been waiting forever for him to review it. And it's a real shame because this film is equally as good, if not better, than the original. While the original Mighty Joe Young is an iconic classic and introduced the world to the legendary stop-motion animator Ray Harryhausen, the remake has always been forgotten about, and it's still a phenomenal adaptation, with some great adapted characters, a small but decent story filled with adventure and excitement, as well as some incredibly talented special effects, hell, being one of the last films using a massive load of practical effects to accomplish most of the shots. It's a real shame that this film doesn't get the credit that it deserves. If you haven't seen the film, do yourself a favor and check it out. It just got a recent Blu-ray release for the 20th anniversary, and overall, it's really worth your time to pick out of the jungle brush when you have the chance. And that's why Mighty Joe Young unfortunately flopped at the box office. But I want to hear from you. What's your take on the 1998 Mighty Joe Young? Let me know in the comments down below. So until the next video, guys, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you later. This is BigJackFilms, signing off.